This is the Unstoppable Amazon Academy podcast,
where we bring you the business advice, skills, and e-commerce news you need to grow a profitable, sustainable business.
Welcome to another episode of the Unstoppable Academy show, where we're wanting to help move you through the processes and the things that you need to really be looking at in your business in order to have that growth. So today we're going to be talking about something that will help you drive your top line growth. Now we're going to have other episodes in things that you need to be watching to protect your bottom line. Now, before we get into this, I want to share a couple of pitfalls. One of the pitfalls is people are trying to grow their gross sales, try to grow their volume and grow their business, is that they will lower their expected return on investment. They will increase their expenses, and they might start buying deeper, more of something than they thought they would have. This is especially indicative of somebody who gets a large loan. And one of the reasons why we don't like people taking large loans right away, not because, debt has some horrible thing around. Debt used wisely can be great for your business, but it's easy to not understand how the metrics, the numbers in your business will change depending on the cash flow and the way that you're buying. So what I'm going to be sharing today is three things that you should be looking at when you're looking at trying to increase your gross sales. Now, again, if you are trying to do this, you need to guard against your current margins. The way that we're going to do that in a nutshell is by making sure that you're not lowering your average ROI significantly, that you're not adding additional expenses without need. And on the last piece, you're going to be making sure that you're watching those fixed expenses and that you're making sure you're not buying deeper than you used to be on your inventory. So maybe if you've been buying retail arbitrage and you've been buying 14 days worth of stock, what happens is sometimes people will hire a bunch of shoppers, or now they have a ton of money. So where they would have normally have bought 20 of an item, now that they'll buy 50. The thing is that the demand for a product does not change based off of the supply. So it's going to move at the same rate that it was before, unless there's some sort of external advertising or listing optimization, something that's happening there. And so what you want to do is you want to make sure that you understand that that's going to make more of your capital tied up in inventory, which can hurt your cash flow. So just some quick words of wisdom when it comes to growing your business. And we're going to have more detailed podcasts specifically on guarding your margins as you grow. So one of the numbers, I had an Academy member who reached out and he said, is there something in the Academy that tells me what metrics I should really be looking at, or is there a blog post? And, I really wanted to revisit some of the metrics that we have found really, really valuable. And when we started to really grow our business, we were really focused on the RA side. We were focused on how much did we spend each week? How much do we ship each week? And that was a way for us to create the metrics that I'm going to talk about now. So obviously we're going to be watching gross sales, because that is an indicator that we're heading in the right direction. Now, if you've read 4 Disciplines of Execution, these metrics are all lag measures. So there's not something, you'd have to create the lead measures, things that are predictable and influenceable to help you move towards these goals. But these are metrics that you want to measure on maybe a bi-weekly, so every other week, or monthly basis, depending on the size of your business. So if you are past maybe that $20,000 mark a month, then I would say you should be checking it every other week just to keep an eye on things, because your business is moving faster. And if you're below that, then I think once a month should be sufficient. The 3 metrics that I recommend that you really focus on is 1, obviously gross sales, and then 2, your total inventory value. Now, it used to be we just focused the inventory value on Amazon, and that's the easiest number to get from Inventory Lab. But what I want you to also be aware of is how much inventory you have at your local location. This is going to become a bigger and bigger issue, and something we need to start building systems for now. As Amazon gets stricter about their storage and continue to increase fees, more of your items might have to be stored at your physical location until it's time to send them into Amazon in smaller chunks. So if that is the case, you need to want to at least start thinking about local inventory that you have now. But if pretty much right now everything is at Amazon, then you can focus on having your total inventory value. This is going to be the retail value. Now, your end of the year value, the one that your accountant wants, is going to be your cost. So how much did you spend on the total inventory that remains unsold? This is different. This is a little bit easier to calculate. So if you have Inventory Lab, if you just go to inventory valuation, it puts it right there in that little bottom graph. Really easy peasy. If you don't have Inventory Lab, you're just going to download your inventory health report, and you're going to have to create some formulas in Excel. We're basically going to multiply the quantity times how much the item is selling for the current price and carry that all the way down. And so you're going to want to know how much inventory do you have at Amazon. So if you're not changing your buying criteria and you want to say, okay, I want to replace everything that I sold in the last week, and I want to increase it by a certain amount. So if you're in the academy, in that action planning playbook that we have, that is really where we go in and we say, this is how much I need to grow, and I need to replace what's sold, and I need to increase my inventory value by a certain amount so that I know that I can have more sales. Because you can't have more sales if you don't have quality, profitable inventory, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that you have that quality, profitable inventory, and you're going to measure how much you have in the stock at Amazon. So how much in the retail value do you have at Amazon? And you're going to measure that either, depending on your size, every 2 weeks or monthly. For those of you who are using this as part of your scoreboard for the 4 disciplines of execution, you might decide to have this done more often. You might have it done weekly. If so, then in the academy, we have the inventory evaluation. Even though that's a monthly item in the account admin course, you could have your VAs do that for you on a weekly basis. It's very quick. Should take them less than 5 to 10 minutes each week to do. So now that you know how much inventory you have at Amazon, you know how much your gross sales are, because we can all see that pretty clearly. The other thing we're going to track is the inventory that has been aged at Amazon over 90 days. This is the most difficult of the numbers to gather, but it's still pretty easy compared to some of the other numbers that you could be measuring. For this podcast, I wanted to make sure that all 3 numbers were numbers that were pretty easy for somebody to get, even if they didn't have a lot of advanced Excel experience. So with the amount of inventory that you have had aged over 90 days, if you know that you are never going to open up a report, it's just not going to happen, then you are going to go to the inventory planning dashboard, and you're going to use the dashboard, the aged inventory dashboard that is in Seller Central. They now give you an idea of the number of units that you have. This is subpar because you can't really see the retail value, so it's kind of hard for you to identify how much of your inventory, what percentage of your total inventory is really inventory that has been aged. The reason we're looking at this metric, just to back up a little bit, is because if you're buying inventory and sending it in, thinking it will sell in 30 to 60 days, and we really shouldn't be sending inventory in unless there's a really good reason. We shouldn't be sending inventory that we think will take longer than 30 to 60 days. So if you thought it was going to sell maybe in 30 days and it's still there after 90 days, then we made a mistake. We bought the item at too high of a cost, or we've had to keep it priced higher. The item was oversaturated. There was too many of the item, or you bought too many of the item. So what we want to be able to do is identify which items have been there over 90 days. Now, if you have set up your SKU system like we recommend in the academy, where you include something about the source or the sourcing method or the sourcer, then you're going to really easily be able to see patterns. We're going to say, you know what? All of these items that have been here over 90 days, all of them are things that I bought RA, or I bought OA, or I bought wholesale. So that's not your best strength, is that sourcing method. So you either need to reevaluate your criteria, or maybe you pull back on that sourcing method and focus on the sourcing methods that are working well for you. As you look at the inventory that's been aged there over 90 days, you're going to look at patterns and why they're there. We also want to look at the total value. So if you do that inventory evaluation that is in the account admin course, also in the files area of the academy, what we're going to recommend is once you do those, you're going to do that on a weekly basis, or if you're checking it on for a scoreboard, but for, at least twice a month or once a month if you're still a young seller as far as experience on Amazon and your gross sales. And you're going to look at, out of $100,000 of inventory, what percentage of that has been there over 90 days? If you see a percentage, I'm just going to make up an arbitrary number. This is to be clear. This is an arbitrary number. But if you're over 20% of items that have been there 90 days, then it's time to start being a little bit more critical on your sourcing methods. If your items over 90 days is 30% of your total inventory value, then we want to start looking at it a little bit more critically. And if your items over 90 days are past the 50% mark, that is a red flag. That's where we're actually going to say, we need to stop sourcing for a minute, maybe a week, maybe a couple of days, until we identify what the problem is. Because that means 50% of the items that you bought are not selling as well as you thought. Now, if you have books and media, something that's in there that has been stale and you're keeping it in there for a long time, you can remove that from your total number and take that into account and say, okay, well, it says that 30% of my inventory has been there aged over 90 days, but those items are all books that I bought as long-term hold, and so we're not going to count those as inventory that actually has been aged over 90 days because it wasn't a mistake in buying. It's just I bought those with the intention that they would take longer to move. So we're, just to keep things simple, again, let's go back and recap. You think the metric that you want to focus on, you want to be looking at gross sales. That tells you if you're getting the result that you want. Inventory value, how much inventory value? Make sure you're consistently sending in good inventory, that you have enough inventory to justify the sales for your gross sales target. And then the amount of inventory that you have over 90 days, that indicates if, the number of items that you bought that maybe were a mistake. And we're going to keep track from month to month. I recommend that you keep that and you have a rolling month where you're able to see how you did in previous months. A big red flag is if you have your inventory that's been there over 90 days is starting to grow faster than your inventory value. That means you are buying more stuff, but you're not buying more stuff that is selling. That's a red flag. You need to stop. You need to figure out what's going on. Back up before you make additional purchases, and especially before you make any big purchases. So if you're thinking about getting a loan, I would recommend that maybe start by doing something a little smaller and then giving yourself 30 days to make sure that the scaling that you intend is actually going to give you the results that you want. And now these numbers might take a little bit for you to do. I would say that if you were looking at these numbers on a weekly basis, it might take you 15 minutes per week. The first week, it'll take you an hour. The second week, it'll probably take you a half an hour. But after you understand how to read the reports, how to create the formulas, it will be really fast. And for those of you who are past maybe the $20,000, maybe even the $10,000 a month mark, you might want to consider having a VA do this. And, you could even hire somebody off of FreeUp and, let FreeUp know, like, I need somebody who has experience with Amazon reports and experience with Excel who can give me this report on a weekly basis. So again, 3 metrics to measure as you're trying to grow your business and try to grow your gross sales are going to be your total gross sales, the inventory value that you have at Amazon, and the amount of inventory value that you have at Amazon that's been there over 90 days. That's going to allow you to measure that you have inventory that's available to support your growth and that you're buying items that are selling. So it allows you to kind of look at a beginning stage of inventory turn without the complicated calculating inventory turn can be a little bit more complicated and a little bit more nuanced depending on your product mix. So this is a way for you just to very quickly and easily see how you're doing in your business. I wanted to pick 3 metrics that were really easy for you to get and gather or to have a VA get and gather for you. This podcast is all about helping you move through the success path that we've laid out in the Academy, moving from that growth and entrepreneur phase all the way into that CEO phase where you're starting to really have the gross sales, the profitability that gives you a long-term sustainable business. So if you're interested in finding out more about some of these tactics, you can find out more about our Unstoppable Academy at bestfromthenest.com/academy. We hope you have a prosperous and profitable week. Thanks, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Are you looking to grow your business?
Join our Unstoppable Amazon Academy with hundreds of video and step-by-step tutorials to walk you through the skills you need to take your business to the next level. Find out more at bestfromthenest.com/academy.
Use the promo code podcast to get a 14-day trial.